I have to say, I don't get this one. For years, the cleanup of Oregon's rivers was paid for out of the general school fund. So it's kind of like textbooks, computers, ship cleanup. I really don't have an idea how those two are related, but that's probably for another day. The good news, schools are no longer footing the bill, and the work is continuing. Last week, crews finally got this massive ship out of the Columbia River near Rainier. It's called the FV Tiffany. It's a 200-ton former fishing ship built back in 1939. It sank back in 2021, spilling fuel. The Coast Guard did what they could to clean up and get the ship floating again, but really it just sat there ever since. And it was not doing the river any favors.
The Tiffany was a particularly hazardous vessel. Not only, was it affecting use of the waterway, but it was really a hazard. Some of the samples taken from that vessel showed really high levels of PCBs and lead, which are hazardous to the environment and potentially hazardous to people. So that was a high priority to remove that vessel from the Columbia.
Now, the estimated cost to get it out of the water, $1.42 million. As I mentioned in the past, whenever the state would help remove a ship like that, the money would come out of the Common School Fund, taking money away from students. But that changed during this past legislative session. A bill that did really not get as much fanfare as it should have, House Bill 5029, directed how certain settlement dollars should be spent, and it allocated nearly $19 million from the Monsanto Roundup weed killer lawsuit towards removing ships like the Tiffany.
Abandoned and derelict vessels pose a hazard to waters statewide. There are hundreds of abandoned and derelict vessels in waterways across Oregon, which not only affect the environment, but people's ability to use and enjoy what should be places for the public to go and fish and swim and otherwise make the most out of the waterways that belong to them. So these hazardous vessels are really a huge problem everywhere in Oregon.
That doesn't sound good. How big is the problem? Well, just in the Portland area, we're told, including things like abandoned sailboats, motorboats, and recreational vehicles, the number is something like 175 in the waterways. And when it comes to big ships like the Tiffany,
for the Portland area alone, there's 8 large vessels of concern, and the estimated removal and disposal cost for those is more than $8 million. And then statewide, there's 11 more. That's estimated to cost an additional $26.2 million for removal and disposal.
So yeah, there are a lot of them out there, and it's not cheap to get rid of them. Our next question for the Department of State Lands was, well, okay, are the owners picking up the tab? You know, consequences for abandoning them? Well, couldn't that settlement money be used for other things if the owners were paying?
The state always wants to keep the owner on the hook for paying for cleanup costs. It can be challenging. So sometimes the owner can't be located. Sometimes the owner doesn't have resources to remove the vessel. Again, these are very expensive cleanups. So sometimes, though we try to keep owners responsible and make sure they foot the bill, sometimes it's just not possible. And we still need to do our job and keep the waterways healthy and clean by cleaning up these vessels. So we pursue recovering costs from owners as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, I hope you get more of them. The state has not pursued any criminal penalties against these boat owners yet. We're told there is not a direct path to make that happen easily. What they can do more easily is hold the owners liable for the cleanup costs, but as you just heard, even that can be kind of hit and miss. In the meantime, that settlement money is also being used to help the state's new abandoned and derelict vessel work group, which will send a report to lawmakers and Governor Kotek in the spring on what they think should be done to keep these boats out of our waters in the first place. They'll also look at what kind of funding they need to keep the removals going in the future without taking dollars from the Common School Fund.